From the day I hear the name of Rastafari, I know that was the calling of I and I within this time.
What really happened to Jacob Miller? The reggae legend with the booming voice and larger-than-life personality was more than a singer. He was the heartbeat of Inner Circle and a rising star who seemed destined for greatness. His playful energy on stage made fans laugh, while his powerful vocals gave reggae a bold new edge. But behind the bright smile and the joyful music was a story that ended far too soon. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the life, the career, and the shocking end of Jacob Miller, the reggae icon gone too soon. Early years. Imagine being a kid so generous that you toss your entire stash of money into the air just so your friends can grab it. That's not a story about some eccentric billionaire. It was Jacob Miller as a child. Before he became a reggae icon with a voice that could fill a stadium, Miller was already showing the larger-than-life personality that would make him unforgettable. Jacob Miller entered the world in Mandeville, Jamaica, in 1952. He was the only son of Joan Ashman, a talented choir singer and pianist. While music ran in the family, his childhood wasn't picture perfect. Miller never knew his father, and most of his upbringing fell to his great aunt. Despite these challenges, he stood out early for his friendly, open nature. His mother would tell stories about how he seemed to carry sunshine in his smile, even when life wasn't easy. One of the most vivid childhood memories comes from his time in Halfway Tree, a busy neighborhood in Kingston. According to his mother, young Jacob literally threw all of his money into the air so his friends could catch it. That kind of carefree generosity wasn't an act, it was just who he was. From a young age, music was never far from his hands. Instead of toy cars or comic books, Miller found joy in turning household items into percussion. Pots, pans, or whatever was lying around became instruments in his little home concerts. If it made noise, Jacob was drumming on it. By 1960, when Miller was 8 years old, life shifted in a big way. He moved to Kingston, Jamaica's capital and cultural hub. Kingston was the heartbeat of reggae, ska, and dancehall, a city buzzing with sound. For a boy already obsessed with rhythm, it was like stepping into the center of the universe. The move gave him access to a world of music he had only dreamed of. Street corners echoed with the sounds of ska bands. Singers honed their craft at makeshift studios, and the city pulsed with energy. This was the environment that would shape him into the reggae powerhouse he later became. What set Miller apart wasn't just his voice, it was his personality. He was playful, charismatic, and unafraid to be bold. The same kid who once gave away his money grew into a performer who gave everything to the crowd. He carried himself with a mix of mischief and warmth that pulled people in. That sense of humor and fun made him stand out in the reggae scene. While many artists leaned heavily on deep spiritual and political messages, Miller balanced that with a playful spirit. He could sing about serious issues and still leave the audience smiling. Even in his early days, Miller's voice was unforgettable. Rich, powerful, and booming, it carried a weight that made people stop and listen. Combine that with his stage presence, and it's easy to see why he became one of the most talked about reggae singers of his time. His roots in Rastafarian culture also played a role in shaping his perspective and his music. Rastafari was a way of life that colored how he saw the world. His lyrics and performances carried that influence, connecting him to a tradition of reggae artists who used their art to express faith, culture, and identity. By the time Miller was a teenager, Kingston's music scene had already taken notice. His natural talent and larger-than-life energy made him impossible to ignore. Producers and fellow musicians could see that this wasn't just another singer trying to make it. This was someone with star quality. What made him special wasn't simply that he could sing. It was the way he lived his music. He had rhythm in his bones, and you could feel it in everything he did. From tapping on pots and pans as a boy to commanding a stage as a young man, Jacob Miller embodied music in its purest form. Music enters the picture. When Miller moved to Kingston as a child, the city's music scene became his playground. By the time he was a young teen, he was spending every free moment at recording spots, especially the famous Studio One run by Clement Sircoxone Dodd. This wasn't just a random hobby. Miller wanted to be the next kid star of reggae. At only 13, he recorded 3 tracks at Studio One. The most memorable of those was Love is a Message. While the song didn't set the charts on fire, it did land in the hands of the Swaby brothers, Horace and Garth, who owned the Rockers sound system. They gave the tune some playtime, which was enough to set things in motion. Horace Swaby, who would later rise to fame as Augustus Pablo, saw something in young Jacob. Even though Dodd didn't push the single, Pablo's interest turned out to be a key turning point. Sometimes it only takes one person believing in you to change everything, and Miller had just found that person. Fast forward to the early 70s. The Swaby brothers launched their own record label, and Augustus Pablo, now a recognized name, brought Miller back into the studio. In 1974, Pablo recorded a new version of Love Is a Message under the title Keep On Knocking. This time, the timing was right, and Miller's career started to gain real traction. Over the next year and a half, Jacob laid down several tracks for Pablo, including Baby I Love You So, False Rasta, Who Say Ja No Dread, Each One Teach One, and Girl Named Pat. Each release became a rocker's favorite, thanks in part to King Tubby's legendary dub mixes on the B-sides. These songs gave Miller a reputation as more than just another singer. He was now considered a serious talent with a unique voice, and reggae fans were starting to pay attention. For an artist who had once been brushed off at Studio One, this was the breakthrough he needed. Miller's growing reputation soon brought him to Inner Circle, a young reggae group making waves by performing reggae-style covers of popular American hits. The group included Roger Lewis on guitar, Ian Lewis on bass, Bernard Towder, Harvey on keyboards, and Rashid McKenzie on drums. They needed a new frontman, and Miller was the perfect fit. From the moment he joined, he wasn't just Jacob Miller anymore. He became Jacob Killer Miller. And no, it wasn't because he was dangerous. It was because his stage presence and powerhouse vocals absolutely killed it every time he stepped up to the mic. Roger Lewis later described him as always happy and always joking. He wasn't the kind of singer who brooded in the corner, puffing on a cigarette and pretending to be mysterious. Miller loved making people laugh, and that joy spilled into his performances. His mix of charisma and talent made Inner Circle stronger than ever. The band's sound was already tight, but adding Miller gave them a frontman who could light up the room with a single grin. Imagine James Brown's energy mixed with reggae rhythms and a dash of stand-up comedy. That was Jacob Miller on stage. Plenty of singers came and went in the reggae scene during the 70s, but Miller stood out for two reasons. First, his voice was instantly recognizable. It was deep, booming, and soulful in a way that demanded attention. Second, he had that rare gift of making an audience feel like part of the performance. Fans didn't just listen to Jacob Miller, they felt connected to him. Whether he was cracking a joke, belting out a chorus, or bouncing across the stage, he brought people in and made them feel the joy he carried inside. Looking back, the journey feels almost poetic. The boy who once spent hours hanging around studios hoping to get noticed became the man every studio wanted to record. The teenager who couldn't get Clement Dodd to take a second look ended up working with Augustus Pablo and King Tubby, two of the most influential names in reggae history. And when he finally stepped into Inner Circle, Jacob Killer Miller wasn't just a singer anymore, he was a star. Jacob Miller's story during this period is more than a tale of hit singles and new bandmates. It's a reminder that sometimes success doesn't come from the first person you meet, but from the one who truly sees your potential. For Miller, that was Augustus Pablo. With his support and Miller's unstoppable energy, the boy from Kingston grew into one of reggae's most beloved performers. Later career. If you ever needed proof that reggae could light up both the streets of Kingston and the boardrooms of major record labels, Jacob Miller's mid-70s run is Exhibit A. This was the era where Miller balanced being the magnetic frontman of Inner Circle with his own solo ambitions, and somehow made it look effortless. By 1976, Inner Circle had caught enough buzz to land a deal with Capitol Records. That partnership led to 2 albums, Reggae Thing in 1976 and Ready for the World in 1977. The group was experimenting, blending reggae with pop, funk, and even a dash of disco. It was a smart move commercially, helping them reach wider audiences outside Jamaica. But while the band leaned into crossover sounds, Miller's own style was a little different. Even as he fronted Inner Circle, Miller kept pushing his solo career. He recorded Forward Jaja Children, Girl Don't Come with producer Gussie Clarke, and I'm a Natty with Joe Gibbs. That last track was especially interesting. It was a reworking of the Wailers' Soul Rebel. but Miller twisted it into his own creation. He sampled from the original, reworked the lyrics, and gave it fresh life. In 1976, he entered Jamaica's annual festival song competition with All Night Till Daylight and snagged second place. The same year, he dropped his first solo album, Tenement Yard. That record showed Miller's commitment to the rocker style, earthy, roots-driven reggae with dub elements. It was a stark contrast to Inner Circle's willingness to mix reggae with more mainstream genres. If Inner Circle was about experimenting, Jacob Miller's solo was about keeping it raw and authentic. Ask reggae fans what song defines Jacob Miller's career, and you'll hear one answer more than any other: King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown. Technically, it's a dub version of Miller's vocal track, Baby I Love You So, produced by Augustus Pablo and engineered by King Tubby. Here's the thing: Miller's vocal cut was already gold. AllMusic even called it a masterpiece. But King Tubby's dub version was so groundbreaking, so ahead of its time, that it ended up overshadowing the original. Instead of being bitter about it, though, Miller's voice gave the track the foundation that made the dub legendary. It was collaboration at its best. Miller's soulful delivery, Pablo's haunting melodica lines, and Tubby's otherworldly production all came together. Decades later, the influence of that single dub cut was still alive. In 2004, the video game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas featured King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown on its in-game reggae station, sBjA West. A whole new generation who might not have known Jacob Miller's name suddenly had his music playing in their living rooms and bedrooms while they were causing mayhem in a digital Los Santos. The Miller-Pablo partnership didn't stop there. Together they created tracks like Keep On Knocking, False Rasta, and Who Say Jah No Dread. Each of these tunes also came with dub versions engineered by King Tubby. The album Who Say Jah No Dread stands as a perfect example of this dual approach. Every vocal track had its mirror image, a dub that deconstructed and reimagined the song. These recordings showed Miller's versatility. His voice carried strength and clarity, anchoring the originals, while Tubby's dubs stretched reggae into a psychedelic, almost cosmic space. It was a collaboration that blurred the lines between singer, producer, and engineer, and it made Miller a cornerstone in the rocker sound of the 70s. For Jacob Miller, the years between 1976 and 1997 represented the peak of his creative power. On one hand, he was leading Inner Circle as they flirted with crossover success. On the other, he was staying true to roots reggae through his solo career and collaborations. Not many artists could walk that line, but Miller pulled it off with charisma and flair. His ability to balance humor, showmanship, and deep Rastafarian messages in his lyrics made him stand out. He could give you a track that felt light and playful, then turn around and deliver a heavy, spiritual anthem without missing a beat. That flexibility kept him in demand, whether on a big stage with Inner Circle or in a studio with Augustus Pablo, creating timeless dubs. Jacob Miller's mid-70s work shows why he is still celebrated today. He wasn't just a singer riding the wave of reggae's global rise. He was actively shaping the sound. From the infectious groove of Tenement Yard to the earth-shattering impact of King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown, Miller's voice carried reggae to new audiences while keeping its heart intact. Movies called. In 1978, reggae wasn't just music, it was culture, style, and resistance all rolled into one. The cult classic film Rockers captured that spirit, and Jacob Miller wasn't about to sit it out. He made a cameo as a singer for a hotel band, which, not so coincidentally, was actually Inner Circle. In the film, the group performed a stripped-down version of their hit Tenement Yard, joined by drummer Leroy Horsemouth Wallace, the movie's lead character and a real-life musician. For fans, the film was a rare chance to see Miller outside the concert stage. And what did they see? Exactly what people already knew about him: a reggae singer who loved to laugh, loved to eat, and loved to sing. Miller wasn't acting in Rockers, he was just being himself, and that made the cameo all the more memorable. While Rockers showed his playful side, 1978 also gave Miller a moment that was far more serious. On April 22nd, the National Stadium in Kingston hosted the One Love Peace Concert, an event that reggae fans still talk about today. This wasn't just another festival. Jamaica at the time was teetering on the edge, torn apart by violent clashes between supporters of the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party. The concert brought together reggae's biggest names: Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Judy Mowat, Dennis Brown, and more, all standing as voices for peace. The main attraction wasn't just the music, though. The entire country watched to see if political rivals Edward Seaga and Michael Manley would face each other on stage. They did, shaking hands in front of thousands, with Jacob Miller and other artists right there as witnesses. Inner Circle stepped into the moment with a brand new track, Peace Treaty. The song was a reggae spin on the old folk tune, When Johnny Comes Marching Home, transformed into a message for unity. Miller, with his booming vocals and signature charm, delivered it with conviction. During the concert, he and Inner Circle performed not one but two sets. The first was a primetime spot, opening for Bob Marley and the Wailers on the main stage. The second came the next day, outdoors on a smaller stage near the stadium. Both performances showcased Peace Treaty and cemented Miller's role in one of the most important cultural events in Jamaica's history. For those who weren't there, the documentary Heartland Reggae preserved the night. The film combined footage of the music with the tense political backdrop. Miller's presence was unmistakable. He carried himself with the same playful energy fans loved, even in such a serious setting. One of the most unforgettable moments came during Inner Circle's smaller daytime set. Miller strutted onto the stage wearing a policeman's hat, lit up a massive spliff, and puffed away like it was the most natural thing in the world. Considering that cannabis was still illegal in Jamaica at the time, this was a bold move. The crowd roared with approval, because of course they did. That was Jacob Miller, always pushing the line between mischief and genius. Miller's cameo in Rockers and his performances at the One Love Peace concert highlight the two sides of his personality that made him so magnetic. On one hand, he was playful, larger than life, and unafraid to crack jokes. On the other hand, he could step into historic moments and lend his voice to something bigger than himself. The Rockers' appearance gave fans a permanent glimpse of his everyday personality, while the Peace concert showed his ability to represent the hope of an entire nation. In both cases, he stayed true to himself, never pretending to be anything other than Jacob Miller. By the late 1970s, Jacob Miller was more than a reggae star. He was an entertainer with international appeal, a cultural figure tied to Jamaica's political and musical identity, and a man who knew how to keep audiences guessing. One moment, he was clowning around in a film. The next, he was performing at a concert that symbolized unity during one of Jamaica's darkest times. Inspired by. Jacob Miller influence is more than a footnote. If you love reggae or study artists inspired by Jacob Miller, you are hearing his fingerprints in dub experiments, big stage charisma, and crossover moves that reshape the sound. Let's break down what he sparked and who carried the flame. Start with the song that refuses to age. Baby I Love You so gave the foundation for King Tubby Meets Rockers Uptown, produced by Augustus Pablo and engineered by King Tubby. Critics at AllMusic praised the vocal cut as a masterpiece, while noting that the dub version grew even bigger, pushing production ideas that later producers and singers chased for decades. Covers kept coming, including versions by Colorbox and Dawn Penn, which helped spread Miller's melody and phrasing to new audiences. That one song shows how his vocals fed a dub blueprint that others kept building on. Inner Circle signed with a major label in the late 1970s and leaned into catchy arrangements while Miller kept a roots heart in his delivery. That split created a road many artists later used. You could keep cultural weight in the lyrics and still open doors to radio and international stages. AllMusic's writings on Miller's catalog and legacy point to how popular and influential he was during that period, which explains why later singers often cite his records when talking about stagecraft and vocal attack. The Rockers' approach that Miller helped popularize with Augustus Pablo pushed a tougher drum and bass feel and a hypnotic vibe. Writers and podcasters who track dub's growth often place King Tubby's Meets Rockers Uptown among the most influential records for producers, selectors, and singers who wanted that floating yet heavy pulse. When the groove shifted in the late 1970s and early 1980s, lots of performers chased that same pulse in their own cuts and on stage. Two forms of proof stand out. First, the tribute set Songbook. Chapter a Day gathered contemporary reggae voices to honor Miller and shows how widely his work touched other artists. Second, continuing interviews with Inner Circle underline how bands and singers studied his personality on stage. They studied the jokes, the warmth, and the way he could turn a serious anthem into a shared moment with the crowd. Those traits move easily from roots to modern reggae and even into dancehall stage shows. A generation met Miller's sound through the in-game station KJA West in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, where that towering dub cut played on repeat. That placement did more than sell downloads. It put his tone and timing in the ears of new producers and singers who later explored reggae fusions, from indie acts to electronic artists. Influence is not only who name checks you, it is whose chorus and cadence keep living in new spaces. Where is he now? When reggae fans talk about voices that could make the earth itself sway, Jacob Miller's name always dances into the conversation. His energy was magnetic, his voice a unique blend of power and warmth, and his presence so commanding that it seemed almost impossible to imagine reggae's rise without him. Yet his story is bittersweet, one of enormous promise, a brilliant career, and a sudden ending that left the reggae world stunned. In March 1980, Miller traveled with Bob Marley and Island Records founder Chris Blackwell to Brazil, celebrating the label's expansion into South America. The trip symbolized reggae's global reach, proof that what began as the music of a small island had become a worldwide force. Miller was at the center of this momentum. With his band Inner Circle, he was preparing for a major American tour alongside Marley and the Wailers, set to bring reggae's spirit to new audiences across the United States. He had also completed a new record, Mixed Up Moods, which promised to cement his reputation as a leading voice in the genre. But just days after returning home, tragedy struck. On Sunday, March 23, 1980, Miller and one of his sons were killed in a car accident on Hope Road in Kingston, Jamaica. The news rippled through the reggae community like a shockwave. Jamaica's newspapers spoke of him as a joyful, playful spirit who had taken the world by storm, and whose laughter would echo long after his passing. His funeral, held by Archbishop Yeshak of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, reflected the depth of love and respect he had earned. The Archbishop described Miller as a man dedicated to uplifting the poor and urging humanity to end the cycle of destruction between brothers and sisters. The loss was particularly devastating because Miller had been more than just a singer. He was an innovator, known for his stage charisma, witty banter, and fearless experimentation with sound. He had become a model for artists who wanted to balance tradition with fresh creativity. His work with Inner Circle blended roots reggae's heavy spiritual grounding with a playful edge that kept crowds dancing. It's no surprise that later generations of reggae artists, including his cousin Maxi Priest, carried forward some of his spirit in their own work. Maxi Priest, who found international success in the British reggae scene, often cited family and Jamaican roots as deep influences, connecting directly back to Miller's legacy. One of the most enduring parts of his contribution remains his Christmas album, which still bursts onto Jamaican airwaves every holiday season. Decades later, it continues to be a beloved tradition, both on the island and among Jamaicans living abroad. That annual revival is more than just nostalgia. It's a reminder that Miller's voice still holds power, his playful approach to music still capable of sparking joy. What made Jacob Miller so inspiring wasn't only his music, but the way he lived inside it. On stage, he radiated humor, warmth, and spontaneity, making audiences feel like they were part of something much larger than a concert. He didn't just sing reggae, he embodied it, giving it flesh and laughter, seriousness and lightness at the same time. His willingness to push the boundaries of the genre showed that reggae didn't have to stay locked in one mold. It could be spiritual, political, joyful, and playful all at once. This elasticity of reggae, so central to the genre's survival and growth, was something Miller helped highlight. In him, younger artists saw permission to innovate. His presence alongside Marley and Inner Circle, at the dawn of reggae's international breakout, underscored the collaborative, communal heart of the movement. Reggae was never just one man's music. It was a chorus of voices, each adding their own shade, and Miller's shade was bold, mischievous, and unforgettable. His untimely death has often been framed in terms of what could have been. What stages would he have conquered in America? What new albums would he have given to the world? But in truth, his legacy lives in the artists who picked up where he left off, in the music that still makes people dance, and in the annual rotation of his holiday classics that keep his voice alive year after year. Jacob Miller's story is both a tragedy and a triumph. Though his career was cut short, He embodied the spirit of reggae at a time when it was bursting onto the world stage. He left behind more than albums and performances. He left behind a template for joy, resilience, and creativity within reggae. To listen to Jacob Miller today is to feel both the vibrancy of a man who refused to hold back and the bittersweet ache of a talent gone too soon. His laughter may have been silenced, but the echoes continue to ripple through reggae's heartbeat, reminding the world why his name still matters. You know, some voices come along and just refuse to be forgotten, and Jacob Miller is exactly that kind of voice. From a kid drumming on pots in Kingston to the frontman of Inner Circle, he wasn't just singing reggae, he was living it, laughing through it, and showing the world how joy and message could exist side by side. His career skyrocketed with hits like Baby I Love You So, and his collaborations with legends like Augustus Pablo and King Tubby pushed the boundaries of deep and roots reggae in ways that still influence artists today. And yet, just as he was reaching the peak, life had a cruel twist. That trip to Brazil in March 1980 was meant to celebrate new opportunities, but when he returned, a tragic car accident ended his life and took one of his sons too. The reggae world was stunned, fans mourned, colleagues remembered his infectious laughter, and leaders recognized the generosity and love he carried for his community. But here's the thing, his legacy didn't end with his death. Every Christmas, his music fills homes across Jamaica and around the globe. Singers and bands still study his phrasing, his energy, his fearless stage presence. Jacob Miller may have left the stage too soon, but he never left the music. So when you listen to his songs, you're not just hearing a voice from the past, you're feeling the pulse of reggae itself, alive, joyful, and unstoppable. And that, truly, is how legends live on.